Okay, in this next section, we're going to be doing some exposure adjustments to photographs, and we're going to be using the rainbow file. So if we go into the rainbow folder and then right click on rainbow and again open with Photoshop CC, we get this photograph and we want to go full screen. So we're going to go Command 0, make it full screen. And before we actually begin any edits, one of the things you have to realize is if you make changes and then you save over top of the old file, you've actually lost the original. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is when you do an edit, to go to the layers palette over here, right click on it and go duplicate layer. In this case, we're just going to call it background copy and click OK. Now we have two layers. Now what this does, it leaves an original file on the first layer and the one that we're going to adjust on the second layer. But in addition, because it has two layers, when you go to save, it'll automatically default to a Photoshop PSD, which should save you so you can keep your original file. Okay, so let's do some adjustments. In this photograph, this is a photograph of the first thing I saw when it came to PEI, and it's actually a triple rainbow. There's a rainbow here, but there's a faint rainbow here, and there's actually a rainbow down here somewhere. Can't see it, but the camera couldn't pick it up as well as my eyes could. Now, in order to enhance this photograph, I'd like to make the grass greener and the sky bluer. And so to begin, we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, and then Color Balance. Okay, now you'll notice that in the tone balance we have shadows, midtones, and highlights. Now you almost never adjust midtones. It's just too harsh to change the overall picture. We're going to adjust shadows and highlights. In this case, we're going to start with shadows, which as a general rule, the ground is going to be darker than the sky. So on the ground, I would like it to be a touch greener. So as you can see, as I move it across, it's only a subtle change. Okay, but that's pretty good there. But you notice there is kind of a tint of green happening up in the sky, even though it's lighter. So we go to the highlights, and we're going to shift this one towards the blue spectrum until it turns a very nice shade of blue. Probably about there. Okay, and then click OK. Now, if we want to see these changes, what we can do is we can go up here into our history and just click from the duplicate layer, which is the original, to the changed one, where you have much bluer grass, and much greener grass and much bluer sky. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can actually make this a much more richer exposure by making sure that we have an absolute black point and an absolute white point, which means that it'll cover the whole tonal range from absolute black to absolute white. In order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our curves palette or dialog box. And in our curves dialog box, if you take a look down here, we have here an eyedropper for black point and an eyedropper for white point. Now what I like to do is find a spot on screen. You can just pick parts that are further apart, but if you can find a spot that has black and white, like this area of the picture here, then I tend to zoom in on that and then choose my black and white point. So that's what I'm going to do. Spacebar command, and I'm just going to drag out a square here and zoom in and find an absolute black point and an absolute white point. So my absolute black point, I'm going to choose somewhere in here. And I'm just going to click there. And then my absolute white point, I'm going to choose on the fence, like right there. Okay. And just click OK. And then I'm going to go back to full screen and take a look. And you can see right now, you can even see how much more contrast there is in the photograph. Now we can go back and see it step by step, the change. If you want to make your history bigger, you can just drag down like this. And you can start with the duplicate layer, which is the original. Here's the color change, and here's the curve change. So you can see a much more dynamic contrast in this photograph. Now you may not like the changes you've made, and which is fine because you still have the original and you can start over again if you want. But if you don't want to go through the history, the other way to actually take a look what you've done is, if you look over here, you'll see the eye beside each of the layers, and that will make it visible or not visible. So if I turn off this layer that we've adjusted by clicking the eye, you'll see the layer below, which would be the original. So if I click here, That's the original. I click here. That's the edited version. So hopefully you found this fairly simple.